We live in an era that champions diversity and inclusion, with public figures like Lizzo openly celebrating their size and confronting fat phobia. Despite this, body image issues remain widespread, especially in the modelling industry, where the pressure to conform to a specific size drives many to dangerous extremes. Often, the fear of being deemed too thin or not thin enough can lead to extreme dieting, disordered eating, and an unhealthy obsession with weight. And for those working in the industry, self-perception becomes a battle between expectation and reality.
Like an army of tall, skinny bitches.
My feet don't exist anymore. I've lost my feet years ago.
I've had to fit into some that are 2 sizes smaller than they should be.
Even as the fashion world markets itself as more inclusive, the unspoken rules remain. Smaller is better, weight gain is a risk, and breaking the mold could often mean breaking your career. In fact, 62% of models report being directly told by their agency to lose weight, and over 80% fall into the underweight BMI range. But before discussing the dangers of body standards in modelling, it's important to understand how body dysmorphia plays into them. According to the NHS, body dysmorphic disorder is a mental health condition that causes individuals to fixate on perceived flaws in their appearance, often leading to severe anxiety, low self-esteem, and extreme measures to correct exaggerated imperfections. Over time, the rise of social media has only added to these pressures, with filters, Photoshop, and cyberbullying making it even harder for people to see themselves as enough. And despite 62% of UK adults feeling negatively about their body image, the issue remains deeply misunderstood by those who haven't experienced it.
My ex-boyfriend and I got in a giant fight. I kind of went to this really, really low place where I just couldn't eat, just kind of lost a lot of weight from that. And then when I went into my agency and I took digitals, I got all these options, was when I was the sickest I've ever been.
I went to meet with the agency and they measured me and they told me that I needed to lose, I think it was 2 inches off my hips and maybe 2 off my waist. I was a perfectionist, so I associated doing a good job with modeling with losing the weight. So I did. And it started out as just being more mindful, I guess. And then it did escalate and escalate and escalate. My lowest weight was 98 pounds when I was 17. And that was after I had just done a very successful season in Paris.
There was one casting in London. I was 17. I remember walking into the room full of people, and the designer gave me this bodysuit to put on. There was no changing room. She made me just get naked. And she took one look at my body and kind of snickered and laughed, said, "That's not going to work." And then walked out of the room, left me there naked to put back on my clothes in a room full of people.
To get a better understanding of it and how it plays into the modelling industry, I sat down with plus-size model Nadia Giwa, who was once rejected from the fashion world when size zero culture dominated. Now a full-time model, Nadia has used her platform to push for greater representation. Her career has taken her from struggling with self-image to being featured in Vogue, walking for London Fashion Week, and modelling for Ann Summers. Her story offers a unique view on what it takes to survive in an industry that profits from insecurities and the sacrifices models are forced to make to fit in.
Yeah, I was petite up until the age, I'd say, of 28, 29. So I'd been, luckily enough to just have a flat stomach and I could eat whatever and go wherever and wear whatever. And then eventually I started to get a bit of a belly. I started to get bigger boobs. I started to have a bigger bottom half. And as I've gotten bigger, I actually realized I have more confidence than I did before. I've become less conscientious about my weight, but it was a huge adaptation because as it was happening and as it was transitioning, I was looking at my body oh my God. I didn't have the fast metabolism I had when I was young. I didn't have the, petite type of physique I was always used to. So it was a matter of me understanding that as a woman, it's okay for my body to naturally change and for me to readapt to it. And as long as I'm healthy and happy, that's most important. I think regardless of the size that you may go up or down to, you're always going to be extremely critical of your body, no matter what you wear, how you wear it, even if you're to have surgery. It's an ongoing issue and an ongoing battle with you having to consider, that you're just not good enough. You will look at yourself and have to consider, oh, I've got to make improvements on certain things that naturally you've changed already, you've improved on already. It's an emotional and mental distress that a lot of women are going through. The dynamic where everybody is supposed to be unison to one type of body type, one type of expression, and to have the pressure of being a particular size, have a particular hourglass shape, or possibly to be more petite or fuller in size. I think that it's just based on you as an individual, and it's okay for you to be different. It's okay for you to have different body types, different body forms. I think to place it to one community it's too much pressure, especially when it's unnatural to your physique. It could be a matter of your health, it could be a matter of so many different combinations. So it's good for you to embrace who you are instead of having to reassure yourself with the directory of what you see on social media, because sometimes it's a lot of editing. Whereas with me, with the pictures I take, I decided to make sure that it was as authentic as possible. I don't want at any given moment for me to be giving something to the general public that's not true. But as I practiced and I started to consider modeling and started to take it more seriously, whereas when I tried it when I was younger, it was during a time where you had, like, agencies wanted you to be more petite. It was not embraced as much. So it took some time for people to adapt to my new passion, because I was wearing lingerie, I was wearing dresses, I was more outwardly pushing myself. And people never thought that they would see me in such a way because it was never something I did before.
In the 2000s, the fashion industry was dominated by the size zero craze. Models were expected to be unhealthily thin to achieve success, and most sample sizes were no larger than a UK size 4. As a result, many models turned to drug abuse and crash diets to find work. According to Model Alliance, up to 46% of models deliberately lost weight for shows, with 54% resorting to skipping meals, 25% resorting to self-induced vomiting, and even 39% resorting to IV drips. Unsurprisingly, these habits would lead to serious health issues, but for many, these risks felt like a necessary sacrifice in the pursuit of a dream career.
We're now going to look at one side of the fashion business that's concerning many, the growing number of young girls on the catwalks who are as thin as rakes. Is this really the image that the fashion business want to portray?
Today, the president blasted designers who used the heroin look to sell their clothes.
Which came first, the super wafer's modern-day icon or the generation of anorexia-afflicted girls?
Trend from the 90s might be making a comeback, a renewed obsession with the ultra-thin look called heroin chic.
Many people have entered the fashion industry, but their experiences differ depending on when and how they arrive. For Nadia, breaking into modelling in the late 2000s meant facing a world that was openly hostile to bodies like hers. This meant Nadia wasn't just following her dreams, she was confronting an entire culture built on exclusion.
So when I walked into two labels, which I won't mention, it's two separate agencies, at the time I was 19 years of age, and as much experience as I had was as a child when my mother took me to go and get a photo shoot done. I wasn't ready. I hadn't practiced, I didn't have a portfolio, I had no experience whatsoever. But yet still, when I went there, I was passionate and eager to learn and try. When I got there, models, unfortunately, which is a term that's not used to this day and I wouldn't ever use it, but size 0 is what it was called. And that's what they said I needed to be in order to be a model. They said I had the potential, I could do it all, but I needed to be at least under a size 2. And I, at first, based on complete naivety, was like, yes, of course I can do it. And then when I saw the models that were within, the building itself, I felt totally heartbroken. simply because I knew I couldn't get down to that size. At the time, I was a size 12. And to have gotten down to that size, I would have had to compromise my health in a literal sense and not eat and deprive myself. And I wasn't able, or even based on just like my mindset, to do it. I had no confidence whatsoever to do such a thing, nor did I feel comfortable to do it. So I started to look towards different avenues of the industry, such as beauty therapy and skincare and makeup. So I started to embrace those fields more so than doing the modeling. But I felt, based on that level of rejection from both set standards at the time, which was very minute when it came to diversity in different forms of modeling, that there was no opportunity for me to be a model at all. I was very much heartbroken. It was almost like a dream that I had to let go of. And I started to strive into different fields of the beauty industry because I was too disconcerted.
Nadia's decision to not give in to the size bias of the industry paid off in a life-changing way, as it caught the eye of Angel Sinclair, founder of Models of Diversity, a charity that pushes for greater representation on the runway for models of all sizes, abilities, ages and ethnic backgrounds. At a time when the average BMI for runway models hovered around 16.9, the efforts were an early sign of the shift in views on body standards within industry that would later grow into the body positivity movement. Though it gained significant traction in the 2010s, the body positivity movement can be traced back to the feminist fat acceptance campaigns of the 1960s that promoted acceptance and self-love for all bodies. Now, decades later, the rise of social media has allowed figures like Tess Holliday to bring the movement to a wider audience and use their larger platforms to spread the message far and wide.
That level of morbid obesity, statistically, is it right to put people like yourself into a pop video celebrating that kind of weight? And I ask you honestly, to be honest with yourself. We've had all this with Tess Holliday. She's on the cover of Cosmo and it's all celebrated. There's no mention of it being a dangerous weight.
Honestly, if you were really concerned about people being obese and representing something bad, you would take yourself off the air because you're not exactly slim yourself.
Well,
right?
okay, I'm 220 pounds and I'm 6'1". Right, you're 5'4" and you're 380 pounds. So there is a difference. I'm not morbidly obese.
Right, but you're still
I'm
fat
actually reasonably
too.
healthy.
You're still fat
I'm reasonably fit. Well, you might think I'm fat. Most viewers are looking at this and think they're not seeing me as morbidly obese, right? So you're perfectly entitled to throw the jibes back at me.
But you're still fat. You being less
I'm not in
fat
Miley
than
Cyrus's
me
pop
doesn't
video.
make, you know...
I'm not in a pop video, am I? Extolling the
But you're on
virtues of my
TV.
body.
You're on TV. You're on TV every day.
So you think that me
You're on
sitting
TV
here now...
every day. You're going to tell me that...
You think, just to clarify, there is a comparison between me sitting here now, 6'1", 220 pounds, I am reflecting and celebrating a clinically dangerous level of weight, you think?
I think that if you were really concerned about glorifying obesity, you would take yourself off the air.
But I'm not obese. Period. It's just a statistical medical fact.
You're fat, though.
I'm not medical.
You
I'm not
being,
even fat.
Yeah, but you being
no, I'm
less
not.
fat...
This is the point, though. My point is...
Okay.
I think it's a beautiful thing, but I think we need to make sure that we're not just reiterating positivity before we understand that people's body types are extremely beautiful. The word positive kind of ignites that you shouldn't see it in a negative way or assume or be assumptive that it is negative. I think we need to start pushing towards people just recognizing us. But in terms of what it stands for, I think it's beautiful. I think it's good, like it's a beautiful journey where people are able to truly understand that there's more to life than just one body type. I think for one body type to represent the whole entire population of fashion and a woman or a man is ridiculous, because when it comes to the consumption of who's buying the clothes, for example, there isn't one body type that's purchasing the items. There's sizes in all different forms. So we need to remember that. We need to respect that. And in respecting it is making sure that they see something they can identify with. If they can't identify with it, then it's hard to be intentional for people to feel like they can take your brand seriously. So I'd say to any of the elite brands, down to the high streets, down to new creative fashion designers, make sure to include everybody. You know, it is important, and I think it's amazing she made that change. But I think as we're moving more and more towards people recognizing us, it's a case where we don't need to, I'd say it doesn't need much assistance anymore. You know, I think we've reached a point of such positivity and such support within the general public that it's starting to become less and less of a discussion.
Soon after, the industry began to respond, and gradually, models who once would have been overlooked are now starting to gain the same opportunities that their thinner peers have long enjoyed. Although, some argue that the movement has been co-opted by brands that claim to be progressive without making any meaningful changes to their practices beyond a special cover shoot or two. As recently as the spring-summer season of 2025, 95% of models were US size 0 to 4, and only 0.8 were plus size, indicating a swing back to the thin casting of the 2000s.
Well, I was in Brixton at the time, and I was just there. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. I was getting carrot juice. This is like Jamaican carrot juice. It's so good. Oh my gosh. So I went there because I was going to a picnic a little bit later, and I was actually on a crutch because I hurt my knee at the time. And we were listening to this girl who was performing, and she was performing a song on Brixton High Street, just outside of the train station. And it was so nice. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was summer. It was like maybe 28 degrees back in 2019. So she sees me, and we're both listening to the music, and she walks over to me and she said, "You're going to model in my show." But when she said it, I didn't know what to take from it. I didn't know how to feel because, of course, I'd never been approached in that type of way before. And when she said it, she gave me her card, we spoke, and then within 2 weeks I was on the runway. And I was doing a show for her for House of Fraser. I went on to be in one of her, I believe it was the 10-year anniversary of a calendar for Models of Diversity. Then I was in Vogue, and she's placed me in so many amazing positions to realize that when you work hard and you dedicate yourself to something that you love, you could be great at it. You know, it'd been so many years of me just working normal 9-to-5s, which I didn't mind, but the passion behind being creative and having your own sense of expression, there's nothing better than that. And as I went to a performing arts school, I felt like finally I was able to do something creatively instead of doing something more so that's around theory-based academics. So finally, I was happy to do something different, to take pictures, to capture moments, have different looks. It was great. Being told that people genuinely respect me and they love what I do, when they say it, again, I think because I've been in a position to be inspired by people, I'm not used to it. So it's extremely, like I said, it's surreal. I'm literally living my dream. When I'm told, I feel very much humbled and grateful for it, because for a normal girl like myself to just come out doing all these things that I love to do, I never saw it happening. So when I'm told, I feel overwhelmed, I feel excited, I feel happy, but overall, like, surprised, to be fair.
For people who've spent years battling insecurities and chasing impossible standards, the idea of self-love can feel distant or even impossible. And while letting go of deep-rooted habits and shame undeniably takes time, reaching a point of acceptance often begins with just a small moment of clarity that sparks a new way of seeing yourself.
I think the point for me was because I've always loved to work and wanted to be successful and good at something. this was my breaking point because I realized it was my calling. I'd never had something that I'd been so consistent in, so passionate in, that I'd invested so much time and money and effort in. And so this was when I knew I was ready to celebrate who I was becoming, because I was creating a legacy for myself. You know, when you are in positions of inconsistency at time because you're unsure of what you love to do, what your passion is, eventually you come to realize, and that is what ultimately gave me the confidence to strive towards what I want to do in breaking down barriers and gaining more opportunities and representing for more models, plus size models, dark skin models, African models, English models, all of that. I looked up to my mum based on heroism, and she was a woman who had the car, who worked hard, who lived leisurely, who wore her clothes with pride and confidence. She did her nails, she did her hair, she loved fashion, and she always made sure to feel confident in what she wore. So it was almost by example from what I had seen. And regardless of where I've been in my life and where I'm going now, I've always been able to look towards that example. The excitement of this transition as well is that I believe I know who I am now. You know, as long as you know who you are, I think it makes it all the more easier. When you have to consider changing up your sense of style because you're trying to suit accommodating what you're insecure about, there's nothing lower than that because you're limited in your sense of expression. So when I went through that transition, I eventually realized that I was doing something that wasn't me. I was suiting a criteria. I was suiting a category. I was suiting, a statistic. And for as long as you trust and have faith in your own direction, you shouldn't have to overcompensate and over-explain and realign yourself within how you choose to evolve and change as a person rapidly to do anything that doesn't feel natural to you. I think it has to be something that you want. So one day I saw myself, I was about to put on the big jumper and the big trousers because I thought to myself, this is totally not me. I don't understand this. My clothes are not fitting the same. I've got a bigger size now. What's going on? And then eventually I looked at myself and I said, no, it really was as simple as that, especially because when you've got honest people around you, they'll see if you're moving into a direction that's not natural. And so they also encourage me to be who I am. People respect me more. I think when you have to do something that opposes and defies the laws of how they've seen you their whole life, and you're doing something that you love to do, but it's also something that puts you in question because it's totally different from what's expected of you, people respect you a lot more when they realize your dedication and your devotion to it, and when they understand your purpose in it. I've become more intentional, and I'm very, very passionate and very, very serious about my craft. And I feel that with time, people respected not just my consistency, my honesty, my confidence, but more so my message. Growing up, I had the example of Naomi Campbell, for example, to look up to. And now there's so many women who represent on so many different platforms, but I feel that the market of dark-skinned plus-size models to be represented, just even in shows, is important. Diversity is important. So I'm also pushing not just for body confidence, but for diverse models to be commemorated in each business opportunity, especially because I've been doing this for nearly, I'd say maybe 5 to 6 years now. And so I'm really very much dedicated to what I do, and I'm not looking to stop anytime soon at all, or at any given moment. I'm going to continue to strive and dedicate myself towards my craft and in accomplishing differences and changes in the industry. I think I oppose all those negative moments in my life where I stand there and I think, oh, this doesn't fit quite how I had imagined it, and so on and so forth. So sometimes you can look at yourself and say, this doesn't fit me as such, or this doesn't look the way I presumed it to do, or whatever. But in the end, I wear it anyway, because I feel like to advocate for a difference and for representation makes no sense if you're going to consider that you still need to be conventional to a degree. So yes, I do have moments where I could look at myself and say, oh, actually, I'm not too sure if this fits me quite right, or if I'm having such a good day today, and so on and so forth. But overall, I've learned to oppose that, because I feel like that's more so the outside opinions from outside of me. When you quiet all the noise of everybody else and you take time to process how you view yourself, it gives you time to reevaluate yourself. You have to understand whether you like yourself, whether you respect yourself, whether you want to make positive changes. And it could be more exercising, it could be eating right, it could be drinking water, it could be a complete lifestyle change. But whatever it is you choose to do shouldn't be dictated based on outside sources. And yes, of course, you can receive insight and understanding and advice from others, but it's important that you hear yourself. Everything that I felt a bit insecure about, got a bit of a belly, I'm a woman. I'm a woman. I'm a full-fledged woman. I'm a grown woman. So I have no reason to be like insecure of how I'm growing. I'm a woman. I'm a grown woman, and I feel more so, I can't describe why I feel more so confident about myself as I'm getting older, but all I can tell you is that it comes to time. You don't have time to process people's negative thoughts of you as such. It took years for me to feel this way about myself, because I was even self-conscious when I was petite, you know? And as a person who was slim, petite, I was very self-conscious. If I had this confidence from years ago, yes, maybe I would have been ready for it all, but I feel like everything happens at a time where it's meant to, and I think it's best that it happened now. There's much experiences that you can go through emotionally, mentally, professionally, or personally. It strengthens and it grows you as a person. So I would say, yes, I do have those moments. But then I look at myself and I have to remember that I'm a woman who has come a long way, and I'm proud of that. And then I look at my body and I say, actually, I actually like my body. You know, it's a representation of my mother and father's legacy. Why am I looking at it like it's not good enough? It's great. And for anybody who chooses to change their body as such, for example, if you want to do it naturally or cosmetically, you're still gorgeous. Yeah, I have those days, but I don't allow them to overtake my world. So if I could say anything to that, Nadia, I would say walk with intention, and I would say walk with intention and look everyone in the eye. Don't walk in with your head held low. Don't feel scared or like uncomfortable in situations or scared to be seen. Because that was one of the things that made me feel quite nervous. So doing this has definitely brought me out. Look everyone in the eye when you speak to them, and learn to love and like yourself a lot more, in terms of not feeling scared or uncertain, you know, of people's reactions towards you and people's conversations, because much of the rooms that you walk into, people like you, they respect you, but sometimes when you're not used to attention, it can make you feel nervous. So I would say to anybody that's going through that, there is something special about you. You're just nervous because you're uncertain of what it is yet. So just be open to the journey of rediscovering yourself and learn to love it. You know, don't feel so uncertain.
Nadia's journey has been marked by moments of doubt, struggle, and quiet strength. Now looking back with the wisdom gained from those experiences, her words almost serve as a lesson in how understanding your worth, even in the face of low self-esteem, is one of the bravest things you can do, especially in an industry so reliant on image. And while fashion and the modelling industry may still have long ways to go, the people pushing for change are no longer asking to be let in. Instead, they're building something where beauty isn't defined by size, and a future where the industry reflects the reality of its consumers.
I think the general public now, for the way multiple influences, and I'd say influencers, plus size models, disabled models, people who do podcasts and so on and so forth throughout the industry are challenging the modelling industry each time to represent different brands, to do fashion shows, to be a part of different fashion projects. I don't think that as a general public we will allow that to happen, because we've already seen by example how amazing it is to see somebody that looks like us. And so I don't think that it's a chance of any of that happening. I think that we've made such amazing progression, and I don't think it's a possibility that we're going to allow it to slip away from us.